Good day, Peter Quinn with Cater Matthews here. I've got Katie Wagner. She is the founder and owner of KWSM Digital Media. We're going to ask Katie about how she got to this position of directing people's social lives, as well as find out a little bit more about her background. I know that Katie, the agency KWSM specializes in content creation, social media management, digital advertising, and website design. She's provided services to many Fortune 1000 companies, including Mitsubishi, Anthem Blue Cross, F45 Fitness Studios, Caesars Entertainment, and small to medium-sized companies across the country. Katie, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You bet. This is fun. So you have a background in journalism, and we'll get into that a little bit in a second. But what is your educational background? What sort of led you into that journalistic path?
Yeah, I went to Boston University, and I have a dual major in broadcast journalism and international relations.
Well, that's a good start.
Yeah.
And international relations was not interesting to you, or what happened there?
No, I loved it. I actually thought, well, I knew I wanted to be a war correspondent. And so that's why I had international relations. So I would understand all of that stuff. And my first job out of college was at National Public Radio. And I thought I was going to cover, conflict and war, and that's what I wanted. And I have a funny story. I actually, one time, they sent me to Qatar, which some people say Qatar, but no, right. It's to Qatar, right? And this is going to be my big break. And in radio, it's just you have a backpack with a recorder, right? There's not a team. And right. So they put me on the plane and I fly, and I'm in my very early 20s. And I think this is going to make my whole life. And I get off the plane, I'm in the airport, and they call and they said, get back on the plane. And I said, what do you mean get back on the plane? I just got here. I'm going to go, make magic. And they said, no, it's too dangerous. Get back on the plane. And so I did, and I flew home. And that's the only time I ever got to go to a war zone. And I didn't leave the airport.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I bet that happens, though, more often than we hear about.
I'm sure. Yeah. And good for them for looking out for me. Right. I mean, they could have said, well, we'll see what happens. But
yeah. Good luck and God bless, right?
Yeah.
So, after NPR, then you embarked on a television and radio journalist career.
I did. Yeah. I was in TV for about 15 years.
So, some people would say I have a face for audio for radio.
That's not
But
true.
you have a face for broadcast television. What led you to turn away from that, or how did you pivot?
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. There's that touch up my appearance button on Zoom, so we take full advantage of that. But I was in TV for a long time. I was in journalism for a long time, and I loved it. It was the career of my dreams. But the last 5 years or so, I retired in 2009. So when social media started to get big, Peter, in 2004, 2005, I realized that nobody was going home to watch the 5 o'clock news anymore. They were getting headlines on Facebook and Twitter and seeing videos on YouTube. And I was at CNN at the time, and the powers that be said, get out there and learn how to use these channels and get our audience back. And the more I learned about digital channels, the more I realized that our audience wasn't coming back. And this was the way people wanted to consume information. And so I saw an opportunity. And I left my TV job to go into digital and to help business owners understand how to use these channels.
Critical, point in really journalistic history. I mean, the world changed in many ways after 2008.
Mm-hmm.
People were reevaluating, both their position in the world and what impact they either could or would not have on it. Bravo for you, because it still took CNN and Fox and ABC, NBC, another 5 or 6 years to sort of go, well, wait a second, this is where our audience is. They're looking on their phone.
Yeah.
So, wow, that
And
is
now digital is so much a part of all those news organizations, right?
right.
I mean, they probably create more content for digital than they do for TV.
Well,
So
that's where the advertising dollars are going to come, is those clicks, motor their way in, to the agencies that now, I mean, who keeps track of the clicks so that we can value the advertising dollars that they're generating.
yeah, well, I mean, they all do. They live and die by those clicks, just like we used to have ratings, right?
Right.
Every night when I got off the air, we'd get a sheet with our ratings for the evening to see if I won or lost or how I ranked. And now it's all digital. It's all metrics there.
I listen to radio on my way to and from work, both for news and for entertainment. And there's still some radio stations out there that are, offering $1,000 to the ninth caller, which
Yeah.
I think is like, really? I mean, it's like, I don't know. Doesn't seem like that's good
Yeah,
use of advertising dollars, but that's not my business. That's your
that's right. That's right. They don't have us to consult for them.
So tell us a little bit about what your typical customer looks like,
Yeah.
what they think they want,
Hmm.
or what they really need.
Okay, I love that question. So KWSM is a lead generation agency. So our clients come to us because they want to grow. They need a pipeline of leads and sales. And they're typically sort of lower middle market companies, let's say 5 to 100 million, something like that in top line revenue. And it's funny how many people come in with a service they're looking for. I need help with social media, or I need help with pay-per-click or Google Ads or SEO. And I think that's in some ways misleading, because none of those things in and of itself is going to accomplish their goals. And so we really dig into the overall holistic strategy and say we need to create sort of an infrastructure of all of these tools that are going to work together to create a lead generation goal. And it's funny, they'll say, oh, but I don't need SEO. Oh, but you do, because all these things have to work together, right?
Right.
I think that's just an education point. When I first got into digital, almost 16 years ago now, it was the case that you could just do social media or just do an ad and you could get results. But the environment's a lot more crowded than it used to be, and it's a lot more competitive. And that is no longer the case, that those things work in a vacuum.
So in talking to businesses and people that help businesses like you, which
Yeah.
I love spending time with, because I learn so much when I'm talking with folks like you. It's the question that I think I would get to very quickly is, so Peter, you have a $5 million a year business. What's your goal?
Yeah.
Not how do I get to 6, but no, do you want to be at 10? Do you want to be at 50?
Yeah.
Because the solutions to the problems that you're going to deal with in business and lead generation is going to be a function of where do you want to go?
Absolutely.
And have somebody like you be able to sit down and go, well, I've dealt with some folks in your business, and this is what they're saying. They want to be a $75 million a year business, and we help them through the various digital tools come up with a strategy to go get that. Because you've got to have a strategy, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face, as Mike Tyson would say.
Well, and I love what you're saying, because digital is also a long-term strategy. I don't necessarily need to know what your goal 30 days from now is, because it's not going to work that fast.
No.
You need to know what your goal is next year and the year after and 5 years down the road, because we're building infrastructure that gets traction over time. And most of my clients, candidly, are trying to go to market. They're positioning to eventually sell the company.
Right.
And creating a robust lead generation and revenue pipeline is really important for valuation of that company. So whether they're going to market next year or in 5 years, it becomes part of that long-term strategy.
So it seems like you would be a great partner with some of these business evaluation companies that are, being brought in by families. Particularly now, we've got this generation of baby boomers who want to retire and are looking for someone to buy, but very often they just don't, they're not prepared.
Yes.
Their books aren't in the right condition to be able to create a valuation. But more often than not, they're simply not marketing themselves, their companies, and their services in a way that can maximize the value of the tools they brought in to grow the business.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really common problem. When we look at that lower middle market space, a lot of those businesses were built on the backs of an owner. You know, they were the rainmaker, they had the relationships. And if you're going to create business value, you really need to extract that person and have a lead gen pipeline that works independently of them.
Right.
Right. And I think that's sort of the preparation work. So yes, we get brought in by M&A advisors, investment bankers, lawyers, you know, a lot of those people who need to sort of position the company for sale. And that owner dependence is a real problem in those cases.
Yeah, you got to work on the business, not just in the business, right?
It's true. True.
So some phrases, nomenclature that you have brought to my attention, I honestly don't know much about. So tell me, what is Nearbound lead generation and why is it important?
Oh, okay. This is one of my favorite topics because I actually think Nearbound lead generation is the future of lead generation. So first, let's have some definitions. Traditional lead gen is inbound lead gen or inbound marketing. That's where you put stuff out on the internet. You know, you have blog posts, you optimize them for SEO, people find them, they click on them and you drag them back into your business and then hope to convert them. That's how we've done lead gen for many, many years. The other one that you've heard of in the past is outbound marketing, which is cold outreach. Sometimes it's cold emails, it's advertising, but it's proactively pushing a message out to the people you're trying to target. But Nearbound is effectively building and leveraging strategic partnerships. So it's looking at businesses that are adjacent to yours and saying, how can we team up to get in front of that business's audience who could be great prospects for us? So sometimes that's co-creation of content like webinars or events together. Sometimes it's going in on a product or a service where you can team up. Like, you know, I have a marketing firm, so sometimes we might partner with a sales trainer because sales and marketing go so closely together. But it's looking at those strategic partnerships and saying, how can we reach both audiences and introduce us as collaborators, because basically your audience is prime for me and my audience is prime for you. And I think, you know, inbound and outbound, especially inbound, used to be the way we created leads for years and years and years. But the problem, Peter, is today, trust in the internet is lower than it ever has been, right? Part of that is the influx of content being created by AI, right? There's a lot more stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
And then candidly, part of it is our geopolitical climate, right? During the election, stuff gets put on the internet that may or may not be true. And so there is this distrust factor, which is making it much harder to generate leads online. But people always trust people. I mean, you and I do a lot of networking together. And, you know, if I need somebody in your space, I'm going to ask a friend, right? Who do you use or who do you know? We've always trusted people and referrals and word of mouth. And Nearbound marketing is sort of leveraging that digitally, an amplification of it, but it's leveraging that people trust people to generate leads rather than simply putting your trust in the internet.
Yeah, creating those relationships among operating companies where you are not cannibalizing, you know, your potential marketing partner.
Yeah.
Or you're not too early or late in their own business development process. Like a architect is typically someone that I would use, but that I would reach out to when I have the client in hand who needs space redone in their office or industrial building or a brand new building. But they're not necessarily a very good source of business for me because, you know, they're not even in the game until people are ready to spend money and time.
Right.
So I would think, I'm thinking, you know, selfishly for myself that someone like you could actually help develop the right synergies or identify the right synergies between different business verticals to, create that collaborative opportunity. Because I agree.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in your business, you would be looking for people that are advisors to the business in times of growth, right? That would know when a business is growing and they're going to outgrow their space, or they need to bring on new employees, or something needs to change there, because then they're able to bring you in at that point. And down the road, you're the partner to the architect. But yes, it's finding those synergistic relationships that have the same trigger points where we would work together.
So how big of a hook is Nearbound lead generation creating in the market?
Well, I am scared of how this sounds, but I don't hear many people talking about Nearbound lead generation, and I don't understand why. But I like that I talk about it, and that at KWSM, we've been embracing Nearbound for a couple of years now. Like, it's a tenet of how we create results for our clients. And I think that it is going to have a bigger and bigger impact, like these type of strategies. I mean, you see networking groups are taking off. People are doing more in-person things after the pandemic. And I think we always instinctually understood that networking and referrals and people relationships are important to growing our businesses. It's just, I don't think people have caught up enough to really translate that online yet.
Right.
But I think it's coming, and I think it's the right way to do it.
Yeah, it seems like, and I unfortunately, I come up with ideas when I have these interviews that are not on script. And so in listening to you today and having listened to you over the years, it seems like a natural pathway for you to gather new clients is through the education that you can bring, to a room full of people, and is teaching people that Nearbound lead generation is a thing, and this is the way you should be thinking about it. And by the way, the more that you think about it, the more business it's going to generate for KWSM.
We can help.
And that creates more opportunities for synergy. I mean, I'd go to your seminar for sure.
Okay. Well, good. I've got one person signed up then. Yes. I mean, and this is something I speak about on podcasts and in business settings quite a bit. And I like just the education part of it. I don't think every business out there needs to hire an agency, but I do think they all need to have a lead generation strategy, right? Because we can't rely on outside forces to deliver the business we need. We have to take ownership of that. And so whether I can just help brainstorm and point somebody in the right direction, or whether they need to hire us, either way, my goal is that we have really strong, effective strategies out in our community.
So you have a knack, and a good one, of being able to put words together that people aren't normally using in their daily lives, like Nearbound lead generation. Nobody uses that term because it's a thing that you're developing. So brand journalist. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, as we spoke about earlier, I was a journalist for 15 years before I opened the agency. And I told you offline, I thought I was going to be a consultant, right? I did not know I was building an agency. I thought I was just going to help people and do my thing. And when I realized I was building a company, I thought, what kind of people do I need to have in this company to really do great work for our clients? And I realized that journalists are great at lead gen because they understand how to research an industry and understand the questions to ask and get to the heart of what needs to be accomplished from a messaging and positioning standpoint. They're good writers. It's that curiosity. And so I built the agency using journalists. So many members of my staff are former journalists, just like I am. And we consider this a similar skill set, but we're not unbiased journalists, we're brand journalists. And brand journalism is, in my opinion, the art of creating content that centers around the people in a business. Because as we talked about in Nearbound, people are where the trust factor is, it's where the leverage points are. And so we, for our clients, create content about the people using their products and services, the people delivering their products and services, the people whose lives were touched by that process. And so we're really creating human stories that have more emotional connection and tend to perform better online, because AI, for instance, can't create those stories, right? We're out there interviewing our clients and using real anecdotal examples in our blog posts and newsletters and website pages. And so we've really centered our work around this story first approach, this brand journalism approach, because I believe if you think about a lead generation strategy, it's not just about the tactics. It's really about that messaging and that ability to make an emotional connection. Because, I can send you 15 emails, and if they're not any good, you're not going to act on them, right? It has to say something you care about. And so, yeah, we really teach our staff to be brand journalists and to be curious about our clients' companies, and to create content with humans in mind.
Well, if you're not curious about your target, business clients, then I think that's a full stop. I'm not making that all happen. So I think that is so interesting. So, what do you think of journalism today?
Ooh, okay, that's a loaded question. I think it's a very different business than the one I left 15 years ago. And I think, if you'll permit me my soapbox just a little bit, I think today most people don't really understand the difference between news and commentary. And commentary is much more prevalent today than it used to be, right? A lot of the news we're seeing out there, the programs, are entertainment based. They are there to entertain and to excite and to agitate in some cases. And I think that's fine. There's a place for that entertainment, but it's not the same as news, right? When I was in news, I was reporting facts. I've worked on both sides of the aisle, both CNN and Fox and many other stations. And I was never told what slant to use or how to report. It was very unbiased, but I don't know that that's the same in what most people are watching today. And I think the industry is changing, right? They're facing dropping viewership and hardships like we all are. And their pivot has been to more, in my opinion, entertainment-based content. And so
sensational content, something that will drive somebody to the website because I want more news now, right this second, about this thing that you just said on radio or TV. Yeah, I get it. I agree. Biggest mistake that you see business owners making today?
We touched on this earlier. I think the biggest mistake is to start doing stuff without a strategy. At our agency, we start every engagement with a 6-week strategy process, which is quite a lot of research. And, we're interviewing their clients and getting voice of the customer research, qualitative and quantitative, and we're analyzing the competitive landscape and all of that. And a lot of clients get antsy. They say, why do we have to do this for 6 weeks? Can't we start doing stuff? And I think the problem with that is digital is not a magic bullet. If I knew how to generate millions of leads right off the bat, we could just do that, but we don't. We have to have that research to be able to dial in a strategy. And if you just start running ads without knowing how to properly target or how much spend it's really going to take to achieve the result you need, you end up actually wasting a lot of money with ineffective marketing. And so I would rather slow our roll at the front and do more strategy and then be able to execute with more intention. We can get closer to our goals that way. And then we actually stop every 90 days and re-strategize. We analyze everything we've done up to that point, gather the data, and then tweak our strategy. And I think that constant, not only the upfront strategizing, but the constant checking in and saying, are we on track or off track, is something that most business owners don't take the time to do. And that's a mistake. And you don't necessarily need an agency like mine to do it. I mean, you can analyze your own marketing, but you have to take the time to look at it. So.
Yeah, having another set of eyes with experience, I found to always be the better path to follow. It is interesting that the clients that are engaging and you are helping, particularly through that first 90-day process, it would, from my perspective, I would say, well, I think I need 180 days. I mean, I'm not going to turn any needles in 90.
Right.
I probably need a year, and then and have a relationship where I could check back in every 60 or 90 days.
Sure.
To say, this is what we said we were going to do. We we did this, but it did not move the sales volume level to the point we had anticipated. Well, I am so excited about spending time with you. This is so interesting to me, and they're of the people that we travel with and meet with and have coffee and lunches and a cocktail maybe now and again. They all need this kind of work. Nobody's perfect. I mean, we all have inconsistencies in our delivery to the market we think we should be penetrating. So I'm anxious to learn even more.
Excellent.
You've got 5 rescue dogs. Tell me about them.
I have 6 rescue dogs now. But yes, my husband and I adopt senior dogs. And I think it's really important to control the ending and see them to the final part of their lives. And so, yeah, so we have 6 dogs, but they're not like running around, right? They're like furniture. They're all sleeping at my feet currently. So.
Wow, that's pretty cool. You get them through Helen Woodward or the Humane Society, or how?
Yeah, all different kinds, but I really support an organization called Frosted Faces Foundation, which is in Ramona, California. And I'll just give the little plug. One of the things they try to do to eliminate barriers from adopting senior dogs is when you adopt, there's free vet care for life. They've built a vet clinic on site. And so the dogs are vetted for free for the rest of their lives, which is really impactful.
You just have to take them to Ramona?
You do, yeah.
Okay, well.
You do. If you're looking at a $3,000 surgery that's now going to be free, it's worth the gas.
I know. Everybody has a story about a late in life cat or dog.
Yes.
That is not, it's never fun at that stage. Never fun at all.
They need a little more care, but the rewards are great, in my opinion.
No doubt. Katie Wagner, founder and owner of KWSM Digital Marketing. What a wonderful conversation today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. It's good to see you, and I look forward to the next time.
Thank you. So this is Peter Quinn, Kidder Matthews, Commercial Real Estate. I focus my time and attention on helping property owners create value in their real estate. Have a great day.